Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another episode of Real Estate, Real Life, Real Talk, and Real Live with Damon, the agent. Today is Friday, September the 30th, 2022. Wow, time flies. Can't believe we're almost at Halloween because it's near the end of the year and summer is gone already. But I thank you all for always tuning in, for checking out the show where I talk about what's going on in the real estate world. We always have a business spotlight, in which today I'm going to have a person from CureMyCredit, Benita Walker Grant. She's an excellent person. Last week I briefly talked about ways to improve your credits, and she's going to elaborate further on that. And then today I'm going to end it by talking about family feuds. But as always, I like to begin my topic with a real estate topic. And this week's topic is down payment versus closing cost. So we shall begin. The reason why I'm talking about this is because I had a client recently and we're going through a transaction. And me as an agent, I normally like to elaborate and explain things throughout the entire process, from the moment a person gets approved with their finances, to the earnest money deposit, to down payment, closing costs, to appraisals, home inspection, settlement day, everything. So, and this person, I sold them a house before, and they got a fiance now. So basically their fiance was asking various questions, and they made an assumption that the down payment and closing costs was all together. They thought it was all together because of the fact of what the total amount that they had to pay. And I had to elaborate with them. And as usual, whenever I have to repeat myself more than one time, I tend to come and do a video about it, because I always know that there are other people who have the same questions. So a lot of times I just like to basically just touch on it. So let me touch on it. So let me just say real quick and everything that when it pertains to down payments, the down payment is usually a percentage of the amount of loan that's about to be taken out on the house. The down payment is a portion that the lenders make the borrowers put down up front. For example, if you're using an FHA loan, the borrowers normally have to put down 3.5%. If you're using a conventional loan, the borrowers normally have to put down a minimum of 5%. There are some exceptions to that rule with the conventional loan, though, because they do have some programs where they have to only put down 3.5%, but in other cases, they have to put down 10% of the purchase price. With the VA loan, there's no down payment that's required, so borrowers don't have to put anything down. So with those being the most commonly used loans, what ends up happening is, in the beginning, when a person puts down their earnest money deposit, which is a deposit with the loan, a percentage of that is going towards the down payment. For example, if you put down 1% in the beginning for your earnest money deposit, your down payment is 3.5%. That means you have a 2.5% difference to pay. But here's the thing, though. The down payment is not your closing cost, okay? Just to keep that in mind. A down payment is the sum of money that a buyer pays in the early stages of purchasing an expensive good or service. The down payment represents the portion of the total purchase price, and the buyer will often take out a loan to finance the remainder, okay? So that's what normally happens when you're purchasing a home. That's with the down payment, okay? Now, the closing cost, which is separate from the down payment, is an accumulation of all their expenses, from the lender fees, from the property taxes, from the settlement fees. That is what the accumulation of the closing cost is. It has nothing to do with the down payment. Down payment is one entity. The closing cost is another entity, because the closing costs are all the fees, taxes, administrative expenses required to finalize your home purchase. And sometimes closing costs can include the appraisal amount. Sometimes closing costs can include, for example, let's say if there's something that went on with the appraisal, with your expenses, with the taxes, and then let's say hypothetically if the the borrower owes something. Like, let's say they had some taxes, like I'm talking about federal taxes that they owe to the government. In order to finalize the purchase of that home, those things must be taken care of. So the closing cost is an accumulation of all of those things. It has nothing to do with the down payment. So the fact remains is, let me elaborate more. Down payment is one entity, closing cost is two entity. When you go to settlement on a home, you will pay the total amount of both. Again, when you make a deposit in the beginning of purchasing a home, the remainder of your down payment and your closing cost, which is the accumulation of all expenses, will be the total amount that you pay as settlement. So when you see the total amount, like for a buyer, for example, before you go to settlement, you always see what is called an altar. An altar lets you see the breakdown of expenses and charges and credits as well. For example, the money that you put down in the beginning, if sellers are going to give you closing cost assistance, all of that is going to be broken down. Then it's going to say amount from borrower. That is amount that a person has to pay at closing costs. That is the total amount, but it's an accumulation of everything, because like I mentioned in the beginning, if a person is using a VA loan, they do not have to put a down payment down. But if you're using an FHA loan, if you're using a conventional loan, and for those who purchase high price properties over 725,000, if you're using a jumbo loan, you're definitely putting a percentage down in the beginning. But that remaining of the down payment, you will pay at settlement with the remaining closing costs. So I just want people to understand there is a difference. So when people are purchasing homes and people are looking at the total expense, understand closing costs and down payment are two different entities of purchasing a home. Now, I did mention in one of my previous podcasts and in general about the EMD, which is the earnest money deposit, which when a person makes a purchase on a home, they put the deposit down with the home. It shows good faith on the buyer's part. It shows that the buyer is serious about buying their house. I also mentioned that a buyer can put down whatever they want for their deposit, and whatever a buyer puts down, they are giving credit towards their down payment. Now, again, with the FHA loan, the minimum requirement is 3.5%. If a person puts down, let's say 3%, when they go to settlement, they're just paying the difference, that 0.5%. Same with a conventional loan. If a person puts down 3% and their conventional down payment is 5%, when they go to settlement, they're just paying the difference, that 2%. So when they go to settlement, they're going to see that 2% remaining, along with the accumulation of all the charges that I meant, which is the administrative fees, taxes, lender fees, title company fees. In some cases, real estate agents have administrative fees. All of these things accumulate and come up to the total of what a person's closing cost is. So please keep that in mind when purchasing a property and knowing that they are totally separate. Now, as an agent, like I said, I try to always elaborate and break things down so you can have a clear and full understanding and know what you're dealing with. The most important aspect of purchasing a home is making sure that your finances are in place and making sure that you have a full and clear understanding of what your expenses are. You always want to know what the numbers are. You always want to know everything as far as what your estimated closing cost is. What is your estimated payments? You want to know what is the estimated taxes on these things, because once you have your finances in place, finding a home becomes simple. There are plenty of homes out here. I mean, a home can disappear off the market today and a new one will appear today. That's always the case. That will always be the case. Even though there's a shortage of homes, as the new media likes to say, but there's never a shortage of buyers, and people always buying properties. And again, when you're purchasing a property, keep these things in mind, because you want to make sure that you yourself go into purchasing a home with a clear understanding about the down payment, about the closing costs, about the EMD, about your interest rate, about your monthly payment, about what your appraisal is going to cost, about everything. You want to have a clear understanding of these things to help you simplify your purchasing, your purchasing transaction, and also so you know what your buying power is. Again, that is down payment versus closing costs. Now, I am going to have a young lady come up here. Her name is Benita Walker Grant. I'm gonna give a brief history on her. She's a credit repair specialist, and she is excellent. I don't just say that she's excellent. I've personally used her. I've been using her for about 7 years now. The reason why I personally use her is because before I refer anything to any of my clients, I like to make sure that the people that I refer of top-notch service, because I only believe in the best for myself and I only want to give the best to my clients. So on top of that, when I first met her, and I was using a previous credit repair prior to her, in which I told her, okay, let's see how you work with me. So at the time we were going through my personal credit situation, she told me the things to do. She gave me monthly consultation as far as what I needed to do. And then I think it was about after 2 months or so, she told me to apply for a credit card. Ended up getting a credit card for $7,500. And on top of that, to this day, I get still a monthly check-in to make sure that my credit is top notch. Because, like I mentioned on one of my previous shows, you got to at least check your credit at least once a quarter. I mean, once a month will be the ideal, but everyone can't always do that. But once a quarter, definitely you have to check your credit. So I'm going to have Benita Walker Grant come on here. She's the CEO and owner of CureMyCredit. So stand by. And if you all have any credit questions, please put in the comments so I can make sure I ask her. But hold on for 1 second. Benita, can you hear me?
You hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yeah, it's good to have you on here. Thank you for coming on to the show, to my weekly podcast where I
I
talk
love
about real
it.
estate, real life, real talk, and real life, with Damon the agent. So how you been?
Life is wonderful. I love it.
How's the family?
Everybody's good. The kids are great. Everyone's wonderful.
Well, that's awesome to hear. That's awesome to hear. I just briefly gave an intro on me and you as far as we've been working together for, I think, 7 going on 8 years. I was explaining to them how you do an excellent job when it pertains to my own personal credit, because I was using a company. I don't know if you recall. It was named FES prior to you,
Mm-hmm.
and um, they weren't the best. And then a lot of people have always been skeptical about credit repair people and
Yeah,
stuff. But you're legit. You're very good at what you do. You're genuine. Your prices are reasonable, because some of those other people, they want this outstanding amount and then they
I
don't do
know.
anything to rip people off. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying, please share with everyone your company name, what you'll do, what you'll have to offer, and anything else that you'd like to elaborate on.
Okay, very good. Okay, so again, my name is Benita Grant, and what my company's name is Cure, as if you're sick, CURE, Cure My Credit Scores. And what we do is we help our clients get their credit scores up so they can buy houses, cars, whatever is necessary. Credit is such a tricky game. I feel like they judge us on credit, but they do not explain how credit works.
Mm-hmm.
And before I did credit repair, I was a teacher in the public schools for 10 years. And so education is extremely important to me. And anybody who I meet and want to talk about credit, my goal is, that you get some nuggets on how you can improve your credit and how you can teach, your family members and your friends on how to improve their credit. So thank you for the platform, because again, credit is my jam, and I feel like it literally creates opportunities where sometimes there aren't opportunities. And when it comes to buying houses, like, I'm super passionate about people, being able to to change their life, to change generational wealth. And buying a house is literally one of the quickest ways to change that. And when it comes to credit, it's like it's sometimes very emotional, because usually credit, like when your credit is not great, it usually has to do with something that happened, like losing a job, getting sick, a divorce, or something that has some emotional ties to it.
Right.
So yeah, so I get it. I understand.
Yeah, yeah.
I hear
And
a lot of stories.
one thing I wanted to say on that is, because like I shared, like I was talking about credit last week, and one thing that I always noticed is whenever I ask a person with challenge credit, what's your credit score? They never seem to know. And that tells me right there their score not good. Because
Yeah,
when you have like say A1 credit score, I know some people who got like a 825,
yeah.
they're quick to brag.
Oh no, they
Oh,
tell you. They know exactly
right.
the
They're
number.
quick to brag. And people and sometimes people don't want to see their scores because they know they haven't been paying, they know they have a lot of bad inquiries or things, or they've been declined for certain things, so they don't want to know their score. So like you said, life happens to everyone, and it's just the fact is it's just a challenge just to get that score, because your score can drop by 50 points today, but it's going to take a minute to go up 50 points. So go ahead and finish. I just wanted to say something on that
Yeah,
real
it's
quick.
true. I remember one person compared credit to trust, right?
Mm.
So, I mean, like literally, you can be, outstanding and trusting to, in a relationship. And one time that you break trust, it takes years or months to build
Mm.
it back up. And credit is very similar. So what I want to do is I want to explain a little bit about credit while we're
Take
on
your
this
time.
call.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Do you want me to share my screen, or should I just continue just to talk?
You can, let me see. uh yeah, I think you can, if you can share your screen, go ahead.
Okay, very good. Um,
Will it allow you?
yes, it says I can. All right, cool.
Okay,
So
here you
can you
go.
see my screen where it says understanding your credit?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I want to go over one thing, and it's the cost of not so good credit, right? So these numbers aren't totally correct now. I got these numbers back in 2020, but I'm gonna give you the gist of it, okay? So
Okay.
if you were to buy a car, a brand new Toyota Camry, in 2020, it would have been about $23,000. If you had a 730 credit score, you might get an interest rate of about 4.5%, which is good. Any interest rate under 6% is doable. Okay. We are still looking at interest rates that you can get at like 1 to 2%. So even though the interest rates have gone up, but there's still possibility to get low interest rates, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you had a 730 credit score, your monthly payment would be about $429 for this car, which means that after 60 months, you'll be paying about $2,727 in interest, meaning you'll be paying $25,727 for this car after 60 months. Person
Wow.
B with a credit score of 599 may get an interest rate of about 18%, but I've seen interest rates go as high as like 25, 26%. That means that person B would be paying about $584 a month over the
Mm-hmm.
next 60 months. They'll be paying $12,000 in interest, meaning for the same car, they'll be paying $34,043, which means which means that we're just talking about cars now. When you're looking at buying houses,
Mm-hmm.
you multiply that by 10 about how much more money you're going to be paying for the same car or the same house when your credit is challenged.
Right.
So it's super important to work on your credit now before you make any big purchases. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, working on your credit is not as daunting or as hard as they make it seem. Okay. Like my company, we actually guarantee that we'll get you to a 700 or greater while you're in our program, as long as you do your part. Okay. Your part is no new negative items. That means no new late payments while you're in the program. And you have to keep your credit cards between 1 and 10%. Okay.
Right.
Now,
That's been my challenge. I just want to say that 1 to 10%, because when you call me and tell me you need to get your credit card down. I'll be saying to myself, oh, I know.
Yeah, things happen. And especially in the business that we're in, sometimes we have to balance, the months with our
Right,
credit cards.
right.
Um, but credit cards are extremely important, and they do affect your credit tremendously. Now, the first part of it, well, let's go over credit in general first, right?
Okay.
So your
Hmm.
credit score, it ranges from 350 to 850, comes from a complex equation called FICO, and you really have to be a PhD in math to break down FICO. So they break it down into these 5 categories so you can really understand how it works. Now, the biggest category is payment history, and that has to do with how you pay your bills. So anytime so if there's any negative items on your credit report, it's going to affect this payment history. Meaning if you have late payments, charge-offs, collections, foreclosures, bankruptcies, anything negative will affect this 35%. Now, what we do as a company is we dispute those negative items. We write letters to the credit bureaus using a law called the Fair Credit Reporting Act that says that everything on your credit report has to be 100% accurate, reporting timely information, and verifiable. And a lot of
Hmm.
times they throw stuff on your credit report and your name isn't even spelled right, or the address isn't included, or they don't have, the verification documents to keep it on your credit report. And so that's how we're able to get stuff off of your credit report, by disputing directly with the credit bureaus.
Hmm.
Now, one way that you can help this 35% is paying things on time. So paying your car note on time, paying your mortgage, your credit cards, paying things on time help this 35%. But it's not equally yoked. It doesn't mean that if I pay this bill on time, then next month I can pay it late and I'll be fine. They want
Right.
you to be in the 98th percentile with this 35%. So that means if you have 100 on time payments and you get one late payment, your
Mm.
scores may drop 20 to 60 points. You get 2 late payments, your scores
Right.
may drop 100 points just because you were late twice, even though you've been on time for years. So it's not equally yoked. They want you to be in a very high percentile. So what that means is, as soon as we get a credit card, auto loan, or anything, we put that on automatic payment, automatic minimum payment, because we do not want any late payments, because it will literally devastate your score.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So, real quick, I mean, like you said, we're not equally yoked. And the fact is, though, I tell people all the time, because I've had people, like, when they want to purchase a home, and they'll say, "Oh, how much will my mortgage payment be?" And I always tell them, it's like your DNA. It's based off you. You know what I'm saying? I said I've seen people who've been approved for, let's say, 350, but their mortgage payment is totally different because their interest rate is totally different because their credit is totally different. So
Mm-hmm.
people don't understand that and everything. And the fact that, like you said, your credit scores can drop because it's like they want you to be perfect. You can pay on time for years. And that's the one thing about credit. Credit fluctuates, and what you see is like is it every 7 or 10 years, or is it 10 years? Which one is it now? Like, is it?
So negative items are supposed to only stay on your credit report for 7 years,
Okay.
unless it's a certain type of bankruptcy. Then it can stay on your credit report for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they want you to be perfect. And when you're late, like let's say you're 30 days late, it's going to devastate your score for the first 3 months. When you're 60 days late, it's going to devastate your score for the next 6 months. When you're 90 days late, it's going to devastate your score. So it's the longer you're late, the more it devastates your score. Okay. So you want to get back on time ASAP.
Right.
Now, that's payment history. It's worth 35%, but 30% of your score is just your credit card balances. Okay. So it's how much you owe on your credit cards. It is not if you're paying your credit cards on time. A lot of people I speak to, like, oh, my credit cards are fine, I'm paying them on time. You paying them on time has to do with this 35%. Your credit card balances have to do with this 30%, which is almost as equal to 35%. So what that means is, if you do not have a credit card, it means that you're automatically missing out on 30% of your score. It's kind of like if you were in class and the teacher said the final exam was worth 30%, you could do
Mm-hmm.
well in every other part of the class, come to class on time, do all your homework. But if you miss the final exam, the most you can get is a 70, is a C. You cannot get A plus credit unless you have credit cards. Okay.
Right.
I
Yeah.
have not seen anybody over the last 10 years of me working on credit
Right.
be in the 700s.
And don't
Actually, I've
have a
only
credit.
seen 2 people be in the 700s that did not have credit cards. And they were older and they had older lines of loans on their credit report. But literally, to get good credit, you need to have credit cards. Okay.
Yeah. Now
But
let
it's
me ask
not
you a
just,
question about
yes.
credit card. So when you say a person needs to have credit card, so what is a good number of credit card? Because what if they have like I know my daughter didn't have any credit, and I told her to get a secure credit card. So she got a secure credit card. So she just has that. So is having one credit card good, or having 5, or having 10, or it doesn't matter as long as you have at least one?
So what we've noticed is that having 2 credit cards at minimum is good.
Mm-hmm. 2 minimum.
Okay.
What's the
At
maximum?
minimum. Yeah. At minimum. Now, I love credit. So I have over 20 credit cards.
Okay. Well,
I
that
love
that
credit.
that explains for most people. Most people don't have over 20. So go ahead.
Yes, but it's really important for me to specifically say that I only have 5 personal credit cards.
Okay.
All the rest of my credit cards are business credit cards. So I do not, I want to be really clear. I do not suggest you to get 20 personal credit cards. I don't really suggest you to have a lot of more than like 5 or 6 personal credit cards.
Okay.
But that can be another topic that you bring me on for later when we talk about business credit. I don't want to dive into business credit today because it's super important to understand personal credit first. Because if you don't have good personal credit, you can't even get to business credit.
Right.
Unless you have a business that is like literally, like Walmart, then they don't care about your personal credit.
Right. I
So,
get it.
all right. So personal credit, you have to have a credit card, but it's not just about having a credit card. You have to keep the balance low. So let's say I got you $1,000 credit card and you went and spent $500 on this card. You'd be at 50% utilization of the card. Anytime you're above 30% utilization of your credit card, it is going to hurt your credit. The closer you are to the limit, the more it hurts your credit. If you are ever over the limit on your credit card, it will devastate your score as bad as a bankruptcy. Okay. Being
Wow.
over the limit of your credit card literally lets them know that something is going on. And maybe you're in some sort of financial distress. Maybe you lost a job or something like that, or there's something going on, and so they drop your scores dramatically so that other companies are like, okay, don't lend to her, don't lend to him because
Right.
something's going on. So you
Right.
always want to keep your cards under 30%, but when you are trying to make a big purchase, like buy a car, buy a house, you need to be way under 30%. You want to keep your cards at 10% of the limit. 10% of $1,000 is $100. Yes, I am saying that you want to keep a card at 10%. Now, I know that seems low, and you're like, why would I even have a credit card if I got to keep it so low, right? When you're at 10%, 2 things happen. Your credit scores just jump up, but also the credit card companies are like, okay, I like him. I can give him more money. And before you know it, that $1,000 card will turn into a $2,000, $3,000, $10,000 card. And that's what you want. You really do want high limit credit cards because it lets people know that you can handle a lot of money without depending on it. Okay. And if you had a $10,000 card, you'd be able to use about 1,000 of it because that's 10% without it hurting your credit score. So what I want you to hear is that you want to keep your cards at 10%. I know I said 30%, 50%, whatever. 10% is your number. Okay.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter what the limit is, it's always 10%. So if you have a $300 card, 10% would be $30. If you had a $1,000 card, 10% would be $100. Okay.
Okay.
Now I know that seems low, but you can actually be too low on your credit cards. I know that's tricky. You can
Explain
be
that. Explain that.
too low on your credit cards. Now let's go back to the $1,000 credit card. Once you're below 1%, it becomes neutral. It's no longer helping you. It's not hurting you. It's basically like you don't even have a credit card once you're below 1%. So having a credit, so 1% of $1,000 is $10. 10% is $100. So you want to manage this credit card between $10 and $100 at all times.
So between 1 to 10, between 1 and 10% is the goal for most people to maintain their credit card balance.
Yes, 1 to 10% is the goal to have good credit. Okay.
Have good credit.
So you want to manage it, maintain it between 1 and 10% at all times. All times does mean all times. A lot of people think, okay, I'll just charge my card up to $500 and I'll pay it down to $100 before the bill is due and I'll be fine. The problem with that is you do not know when they're going to report the limit and the balance to the credit bureaus. Just because you pay your bill at a certain time each month does not mean that that's when they report it. Mm-hmm. They report it at different times each month because they don't want you to figure out their equation. Okay. So you got to keep it between 1 and 10%.
Right. Okay. Another question that I had. Okay, you say to keep it between 1 to 10% of the balance each month. How soon or when should a person pay the credit card bill? Let's say if it's due on the 20th of each month. So they pay on the 20th, or would paying like 2 weeks ahead help their credit, or it doesn't matter?
So very good question. There's all types of Instagram posts and Facebook posts telling people, there's a hack, pay your card 4 times a month, or pay it twice, or pay it 2 weeks before it's due, and you'll get more points. None of that matters. It only matters that you keep the balance between 1 and 10%. Now, I love credit and I love getting points and I love all that fun stuff with credit. So I use my credit cards like all the time. And what that means is I literally pay them all the time because I always want them to stay between 1 and 10%. So before I make a charge on my credit card, I'll pay it down so I know that this new charge won't bring it over the 10%. So it all depends on how you're using your cards, but the goal is to always keep them between 1 and 10%, because literally I've had clients like literally pay their cards down to 0 and then lose 50 points on their credit report because it showed up at 0.
Too low. Yeah,
it was too low.
I've known people to do that too. Like they say I paid off all my credit card. I paid off all my credit cards and I closed them out. And I will ask them, why would you close them out? Yeah. Elaborate on that too.
Yes. Actually, let me go back to sharing for that closing out piece. So, all right. So before I'm gonna touch on that, but the closing out piece. So there's one other thing I want to make sure you understand about credit cards. Okay, so 1 to 10% is the game plan, but there's also 2 exceptions, right? One exception is if the card is a store card. If the card you can only use at that store, like a Macy's card or a gas card, those cards you can keep between 0 and 10%. Okay. And the other exception is if the card is older than 7 years. So after 7 years of you paying on time and you keeping it between 1 and 10%, at that point, they trust you. At that point, you can keep it between 0 and 10%. Okay?
What if you were late during that 7 years and stuff? So that still wouldn't apply?
Sorry. I added too much to that. No, it does not matter. As long as your credit card is older than 7 years, you can keep it between 1 and 10%. You can keep it between 0 and 10% if your card is older than 7 years. I've had plenty of clients tell me, oh, my grandmother has 800 credit scores and she pays her cards off to 0 every month. That's because they trust her at that point. Her cards are old. They trust her.
Okay.
So if your card is under 7 years old, then they're testing you every month and you need to keep it between 1 and 10%. Okay. Now, the whole closing out of cards, that has to do with 15% of your score, which is called the length of history. This has to do with how old your credit is. So it's averaging out all of your open credit cards. So let's say, or I'm sorry, averaging out all of your open accounts. So let's say you have a credit card that's 10 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the only other open account you have on your credit report is a car note that is 2 years old. 2 years old. You have a 10-year-old credit card and a 2-year-old car note. Now they're going to average that. There's nothing else open on your credit report. So 10 plus 2 divided by 2. 10 plus 2 is 12, and you divide that by 2 to get the average. That means your credit is 6 years old. Anytime your credit is older than 7 years, that's when you have the opportunity to be in the 800 scores. Okay. So
what
the
if you have
closer you
new
are to
credit
7
cards?
years,
What if you have new credit cards? What if you have like, and I'm just asking for me because I just got like I'm not gonna lie, I was on Amazon like about 3 weeks ago, and they kept on saying if you do this, and I just did it, and they approved me for like a $4,900 credit card. So you're gonna see that pop up my credit.
Yes.
So long story short, that's a new credit card. So
yes.
and then
Yes. So let's do that example. Let's make you the example. So you have a 10-year-old credit card and a 2-year-old auto loan. So that means your average age of file is 6 years old. Now you get a brand new card, right? And so now that card is 1 month old, right? So now you're averaging 12, right? 10 plus 2 plus 1 month, you're averaging 12 by 3. So now your average age of file drops from 6 years old down to 4 years old.
Oh, okay.
So now your credit is looking younger. It looks like you're a little less experienced. So yes. So, and let's go back to closing cards, right? So I've had a client. I mean, I remember this. The client called me and he was so upset. He was like, Benita, I had a 780 and I got upset at Capital One because they did some funny stuff and and I closed my card. He closed a 20-year-old card and his scores dropped 80 points. So let's go back to your example. Let's say you have a 10-year-old card, a 2-year-old card, and this brand new 1-month-old card. And let's say you closed your 10-year-old card, right? So now all you have on your credit report is a 1-month-old card and a 2-year-old auto loan. You close the 10-year-old card. So now you just have 2 years divided by 2. That means your credit has dropped down from 4 years old down to 1 year old just because you closed that 10-year-old card. So that's how you can lose points by adding credit or by closing old accounts.
I see the 15% right there, of your credit is based off that. So yeah. Wow. I didn't know that. I never knew that. That's something.
Yeah, and so that's why I say I have a lot of credit cards, but I don't have a lot of personal credit cards. I get all my new cards are business cards because again, I'm not adding or I'm not taking away from how old my credit is by adding business credit cards because the business credit cards don't show up on my personal credit, right?
So let me ask you a quick question. So you mentioned before that in order to have business credit card, you got to have a good credit score, personal credit score, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna have to bring you back to talk more about the business aspects so people can.
I love business credit, so yes, please bring me back because I would love to go into that.
Yeah, you come back next week if you're available. If not, you can come back before October is out.
Okay, all right, we'll do it. So the biggest thing is that you want to keep your credit card balances low. You want to make sure that you don't have any late payments. And if you do accidentally get a 30-day late, make sure it don't get to a 60 days late because it takes longer to get your scores back up. And then you want to be strategic on how you add or erase credit from your credit report. Now, for example, there's certain, once you get, so there are certain accounts, like installment accounts that you pay every month at a certain time, like car note, student loan, a mortgage, right? Installment accounts, whenever you finish paying them off, they automatically close. Like when I paid off my student loan, I lost 15 years of positive history because it closed. I wasn't mad because I paid off my student loan, but it did affect my credit some. I think I lost like 25 points or something like that.
That happened to me about, I think, over a year ago. I think your business partner called me, and we were talking about my credit because I had two BMWs. So one of them I got rid of, and she was like, well, it would have been better if you kept it, because of the fact it was an installment. And I was like, well, I wanted to get rid of it. So, I mean, why do they do that?
So yeah, once it closes, it does no longer, like once you finish paying off your auto loan, you lose all those positive months that you were paying. And then remember, you're no longer paying it on time, so it's no longer affecting your payment history. So yes, it's
that's 50% you're losing, like both of them together, 15 and 35% you're losing.
Yeah, it affects 15% of your score. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why we tell people never to close credit cards, because credit cards are the only thing that you can pay off and it still won't close, right? So people who have 800 credit scores, they usually have 800 credit. Well, they always have 800 credit scores because they have older credit. And you can have 20-year-old, 30-year-old credit cards because, credit cards don't close when you pay it off. So you do not want to close credit cards, especially when you're about to buy a house. You do not want to close credit card.
Okay.
Now, just like, let's take your auto loan into perspective. It's not always the worst thing to pay off, an installment account. Like, it may drop your scores a little bit, but again, it's 15%. It may drop your scores a little bit, but it will affect your debt to income ratio. So, it's not always the worst thing. So sometimes, and I'm pretty sure you talked to, your team about debt to income ratio, no longer having a $500 bill on your credit report can help your credit. I mean, help your buying power, not help your credit, but help your buying power. Right. So it's super important to speak to, a credit expert, or, Damon is now a credit expert. He's gotten a lots of information. So it's super important to talk to your team before you make any moves when it comes to your credit, because there are certain things that may, even though you're thinking it may help you, it may not help you. Okay.
Right. And I always like to leave stuff up to the expert like yourself. I try to advise people because I'm very knowledgeable and experienced when it pertains to credit, but there's so many loopholes and ins and out about credit that's not my profession. So even when I deal with people and stuff, I always ask them, I said, do you want to deal with a credit specialist or do you want to do it yourself? And the thing about it is, though, even though you're sharing the 5 factors of your credit score, it's very tedious to the point where people don't want to do certain things. And because they don't want to do certain things, I'm talking about a lot of people, not all people, it would be easier just to have that conversation with a professional like yourself to see what you can offer them and to see where they're at and everything. Because like I said, I mean, you all are not that expensive compared to some other credit specialists that I've, heard of. And, I'm saying, I had somebody recently to contact me. Well, I was speaking with a lady the other day, and she deals with personal credit and business credit. And I told her, I've been doing real estate for 17 years. And I told her I already have a relationship with a credit specialist. And that because, like I said before I even share anyone with any of my clients, I always like to make sure that people are just like me, that they're legit, that they're genuine, that they're going to do the best and look out for people, because so many people have bad experience with credit specialists taking their money and not doing anything. Yeah. And one of the things for me is like that company I mentioned before. I remember when I was with them, when when I was with Remax, and I remember I sent one of my clients to them, and my client paid I think it was like $500 in the beginning. I don't know if it was for the year or whatever. Then about 6-7 months later, my client called me fussing at me and said, they took my money. My credit score hasn't gone up. All they're doing is sending me stuff that I got to sign and put in the mail and stuff. I don't know what's going on. So when I called the owner, he was trying to justify, but then I come to find out that was like what do you call it?
Multi-level marketing.
Yes,
Yeah.
and everything. So they ain't really that serious about looking
I
out for
think they
people.
got sued and they're closed now. But the thing is, with one of the things that stands out about my company is that we meet with our clients every 35 to 40 days to go over their results. And then also so that understand what's happening with your credit. Like, I think that it's really like a lot of these credit repair companies, they act like they're doing surgery and they're the doctor and they're the only ones that know how to understand it, and they don't teach you anything. They don't explain anything. They just tell you, give me your money and I'll do it. The thing is, as I just explained to you, I mean, we're really good at getting negative items off your credit report. But if you don't pay down your credit cards and keep them down, you're not going to be able to purchase. It does not matter. I've seen it too many times where we've gotten 80 negative items off of someone's credit report and they're still maxed out on their credit cards and they're not able to purchase. Credit cards are for them, it shows how you manage money. And if you are maxed out on $300, on $1,000, on $10,000, it's like, are you able to take on this new loan, or are you struggling right now? And so for them to know you're not struggling and that you're able and you're like, you can handle this, they want to see like that you are handling these small credit cards, right?
They want to see the length of how long you've been paying, and that the fact that you are able to pay on time over a period of time. Because I've had clients who say, "Oh, I got $100,000 in the bank and everything," but their credit was like 500, and I'm like, even though you have 100,000 in the bank, they still want to see your payment history. I said, the
Yes,
100,000 you could have got yesterday. You understand what I'm saying? It doesn't justify. It doesn't show how you've been paying the past 7 years, because your credit report is going to show you a length of time. And that's what I try to explain. Because like I said, one of my daughters, she was fussing, talking about everything is based off credit. I said, yeah, that's the world we live in. We're in the United States. You understand? I said, cash is supreme, but they're going to pull your credit regardless of what, unless you're paying for something straight cash, which most people do not have. Most people don't have money to pay straight cash for a car, to pay straight cash for a house. So even to pay straight cash for sometimes for your clothes, you know what I'm saying? So it's just the fact that everything's based off credit. So she was just saying that, and I said they want to see your payment history to make sure that you can pay on time.
And the other great thing about credit, I have a friend that lives in Europe, and he had come down to visit us a couple of weeks ago, and he was explaining, he was like, I was telling him about my business, and he was like, United States, all they do is credit. Like, United States, everything is on credit and everyone's in debt and da 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 da. But what is real about the beauty of credit in United States is that this isn't offered everywhere. Like, in a lot of places in the world, if you don't have all of the money, you cannot purchase. You cannot buy a house unless you have all of the money. You cannot buy a car unless you have all the money. So the beauty of credit is that you can actually change your family's financial, structure in this lifetime. Like, you can literally have a job, have good credit, and buy a house. You can't do that in a lot of places in the world. You know what I'm saying? So like, if you understand credit and you work on your credit and you get those scores where they needed to be, like, you can get loans to start a business. You can get your dream car, you can get your dream house, you can get multiple houses just on credit. And so it's not necessarily the worst thing for us to like have credit. It's actually an opportunity for us to like change our generational wealth. It's an opportunity. But we have to look at credit differently. This education that I'm trying to give people, it wasn't given to me because it wasn't given to my parents. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like, we should be taught credit in elementary school and definitely in college. We're giving credit cards and we think that we have an extra $300 to spend when we really only have an extra $30 to spend.
My first credit card when I went to college, they told me, and I told them, the thing I said, because they were in the lobby, a table lined up, and it was like, oh, you can apply for credit card. And I said to them, I said, I don't have a job. And the guy said, oh, you being in college is your job. Next thing you know, I got a credit card for $1,000. I'm running it up like it's nothing. And like you said, when the payment come and you ain't got no job, you trying to figure, hold on, I got to pay for this, So like you said, we're not educated, but platforms like this is to help educate people. And just like I talk to my kids, no one talked to me. And just like how you share this information, no one shared with you. But it's good that you were able to share a lot of information, vital information for people. I hope people gathered and soaked it all in. I also put your website, CureMyCredit700.com. Is that the only way people can get in contact with, or is that the best way?
That's a good way. You can also share my phone number.
What is it real
You can
quick?
always call, text, and I always suggest, especially if you're looking to buy a house, you should always talk to Damon first, because I've had plenty of people who contact me and then I look at their credit and they're ready, so you always talk to your realtor first and figure out if you're ready. And if you're not ready, then I'm on his team. He will send you to me and we will fix your credit, and then we'll make sure you're ready, within the next 6 or 7 months. A lot of times it's a lot sooner than that.
Yeah, that's good. And I've sent plenty of people to you, and a lot of them are happy, and a lot of them didn't even buy houses. They just wanted to improve their credit, just to improve their credit, whether it was to get credit cards or anything like that. So if anyone wants to just improve their credit, period, not necessarily buying a house, reaching out to you would be a great way to start, so that people can know what they need to do and put themselves in a better position to have that 700 plus credit score that you will say that you'll guarantee to everyone, especially if they do their part. And that's key, because some people will only say, oh, you say Cure My Credit 700, that you give everybody 700, but they didn't do their part. Credit balance still over 10%. They didn't, pay down anything. So it's just, people have to understand that we all play a role. But like I say to people, when I mentioned before, it always contingent upon you. That's what I tell people, is contingent upon you. You're the primary person. It's contingent upon what you do. You understand? So with that being said, I thank you very much. I'm going to have you come back on. You want to check your calendar and let me know. You can text me when you're available, so we can talk about the business credit. And that way, we'll give you the same amount of time to talk about that. So just in case people out there want to get the business credit as well. And we'll go from there. I appreciate you as always. Thank you very, very much for coming on to my show, talking about this credit. I know I got a checkup coming soon, so I'll be talking to you or Karen. Saw her last Saturday, so you all are a great team. I thank you, appreciate you all. My clients and everyone else appreciates you well, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, thank you guys. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you. Bye. All right, that was Benita Walker Grant. I always say Walker Grant because when I met her, she was not married then. Her name was Benita Walker, but as she said in the beginning, Benita Grant. But I say Benita Walker Grant because that's how I have her saved in my phone. So that was Benita Grant, CEO and owner of Cure My Credit. You can check her out. I left her number right there, 617-955-4599. You can call or text her, or you can check out her website, which is CureMyCredit700.com. So I want to end the show by talking about family feud. Okay, this is a topic that I think many people can relate. It seems nowadays so many families are at odds with each other, whether it is mother and father, whether it is siblings, whether it is cousins. We have so many issues that are going on in the family today. I heard a song recently, and it was like F my cousin. Okay. And I was listening to the lyrics of that. And it made me, to be honest with you, start thinking about some of my cousins. Because I'm not going to lie, I don't have the best relationship with all of my cousins, but I wish I did. You know, understand what I'm saying? For some reason, it seems like some of my cousins, I don't know, I try to do nothing but share love with all my family members, and in return, I get mean mugs. I know y'all heard that before because that was from Tupac. But I just want to say that the family is the backbone, or should be the backbone of most people. We should be able to rely on our family when we are going through anything, whether it's hardships, headaches, pain, when we need support, But we have so many families that are at odds these days and feuding, um, for really we're feuding over differences. We're feuding over things that are really like personable. We're feuding because of jealousy and envy. We're feuding because of disagreement that was never resolved through conversation. Sometimes disagreements can be based off assumptions. Disagreements can be based on hearsay, he say, she say. Disagreements can be based off um, money. Disagreement can be based off children. I've had a couple of friends of mine, and their daughters are not getting along with their aunts, and their cousins are fighting each other, physically fighting each other and stuff. And there's so much family feuding going on, to the point that it just makes me wonder sometimes, like, do we even realize where we at in the world? Do we even realize what's going on? Because some people would probably say, I'm better off not speaking to my family. And that may be true in some cases, because sometimes your family can be the ones that are the most negative people that you encounter because they're closest to you. Sometimes your family can be the ones who never support you when you're down, but then when you start to go up, they want to, come to you for things, and they never was there to help you or never show love or anything like that. But I just want to say that no matter what we go through in this world, what we go through in this life, that we should also understand that people are dealing with us at the level that they're on. And when I say that, I'm talking about, you got to understand, you're different from your mother, you're different from your father, you're different from your brothers, you're different from your sisters, you're different from your cousins. And when I say that, meaning sometimes the things you see, they don't see. Like, for example, you can have a mindset to, rise, a mindset to better yourself, but their mindset can be to be just content where they're at. They don't see things the way that you do. So when I say that, meaning, like, you got to understand that you have to deal with everyone accordingly. You can't treat everyone the same. You can't be mad at everyone. You shouldn't be mad at everyone, especially your family. I'm going to share this. And I remember when my father was alive, God rest his soul. I remember my one of my aunts, it was one of my father's sisters. One of my aunts was watching one of my daughters, my daughter that I actually had custody of. And my daughter was a handful. Like I used to tell people, my daughter used to stress me out, my daughter Bianca. So long story short, my aunt ended up, whooping Bianca. So my father was so upset that he told me that he was sending some people from Southeast to go beat up his sister, my aunt. Now, I understand my father was upset because his granddaughter had gotten whooped, but my daughter was off the hook, for one. And two, and this is what I said to my father. I said, Dad, that's your sister. How you going to get some people to go beat up your sister? And he was like, well, they shouldn't have never touched her. And I'm like, Dad, you got to understand. That's your sister. I said, I understand you mad at your sister, but that's your blood and your family. So I say that to say is that sometimes maturity has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with the level of where a person is with themselves. Because there are some people who are 70, and I think my father was around close to 70 at the time, in his late 60s, that are very immature. And there's some people who are in their early 20s that are very mature. What you got to understand that sometimes dealing with people, including your own family members, is going to take maturity. It's going to take a level that, you know what I'm saying, the best way to hurt people sometimes is to ignore them, because people don't like to be ignored. when you give them, when you keep on entertaining them, when you keep on responding to them, you're just giving them more insights to irritate you and to try to get underneath your skin. But understand that maturity plays a role in how you deal with everyone, including family. So, with that being said, try to be mature, try to always show love and everything. Because here's the thing, I'm not going to say everybody family has the perfect thing, because if your family get out of line and your family touches you or do something, my motto is knock their head off, period. You know what I'm saying? But I don't condone violence, but I do condone protecting yourself. So once you have shown a level of maturity and you have been nice to everyone, if they cross that line and they step out of line with you, you have all rights to respond accordingly. And that is however you respond. But again, family should be the backbone of all of us, and it should be something we should be able to lean on for support and encouragement. But unfortunately, in this world, we don't. And that's why some people will leave and create their own family. But in this world today, there's so much family feud going on. And in the words of Jay-Z, no one wins and everybody lose when the family feuds. So I want to thank you all for coming to another episode of Real Estate, Real Life, Real Talk, and Real Live. Again, the recap is down payment versus closing costs. Understand, down payment is a portion of the loan that you're putting down, with the remainder of the loan being financed. Closing costs is an accumulation of all the expenses, such as taxes, such as lender title charges, and anything else, aka could be appraisals, could be something else pertaining to that, but all of that accumulates your closing costs. They're two separate entities. Also, I had Benita Grant on here from CureMyCredit. She was on here talking about ways to cure your credit and to get a 700 plus credit score. If you'll want to reach out to her, please. Her website is right there, CureMyCredit700.com, or you can call and text her at 617-955-6599. And then also, I wanted to end with family feuding. Like I said, no one wins when the family feuds. We all lose. And the thing about it is, you have to sometimes be the bigger person, because one thing's for certain and two things for sure: karma bites everyone in the ass. Y'all have a great day. And also check out my website, DamonTheAgent.com. I just recently updated it. And then also, please subscribe to all of my social media platforms. They're at the bottom right here. I thank you all for coming, sharing another episode with me. This was episode 29. And you can check this out on YouTube and also on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook, and also Instagram. You all have a great day. I thank you and I appreciate you all.